There are very few times where I step out of the theater and experience two kinds of feelings. One includes wondering what exactly happened in the film, and two, just being in absolute awe of the storytelling that I just witnessed. This is exactly what happened as I watched the two Malayalam films that released this weekend, Mahaveeryar and Malayankunju. There is a lot to pack in these interesting topics that were fleshed out in both films, and there isn't really a way to categorize both of them, making for an extremely unique experience this weekend at the movies. So let's take it one at a time. I went with absolutely no idea what Mahaveeryar is about. I had the slightest idea that it focuses on a courtroom drama that creates parallels with the case of a king in the 18th century, and what I noticed was that this movie was the most eccentric, effective, absurd, and relevant film that I may have seen in recent years. This is a film that will be polarizing to the point where you will either get out of it frustrated at what transpired, or exactly understand the attempt by the creator in establishing a commentary on our society today. I stepped out of the film and spoke to a person who watches the channel, and he rightly said that it almost seemed as if we stepped out of an A24 film, a concept so eccentric that you need days to truly pack it in and understand what happened. The film focusing on a case of a statue of the main deity going missing from the temple and found in the possession of a sage. This leads to several eyewitnesses pointing the blame at the holy man who is representing himself in court. The case ties into creating a parallel with a case from the 18th century where a king demanded his chief minister to get the most beautiful woman in the country, while he is already surrounded by thousands of women in his harem. The case of abduction and abuse aims to highlight how many of our processes, despite the thousands of years of supposed progression, seems to have the same regressive and dated structures and thought processes. Slowly and steadily you realize that Nivin Pauly's character is not a mere human, but having the possession of abundant knowledge across several disciplines and timelines, having the ability, power and knowledge very few can comprehend. While the film takes the route of being an absurdist comedy initially, hilariously presenting cases like a divorce settlement of alimony being resolved through coins worth 24,000 rupees and a case of public indecency, but you realize the effective nature of our bridge shines screenplay and direction, where each interaction among the characters is reflective of us as a society today. Based on the story by M. Mukundan, the film can be termed as a time travel courtroom drama, absurdist social commentary and comedy, a satire in many cases of the garb we have of justice, equality and egalitarianism. There are going to be very few takers for this film, and I totally understand why, and a lot has to do with the lack of spoon feeding done by the creators, leaving most of the moments to be open to interpretation, leaving loose ends and unanswered questions in many cases. But there is a beauty to that kind of cinema that leads to so many theories and discussions, as several parts of sequences and moments from this film are acts performed to stand out as analogies or statements of our current scenario as communities. You also do chime in the comments below and write down your theories about several sequences from the film. Nivin Pauly's character could have easily come across as caricaturish, but he brings a realism and authenticity to the sage, observing the monstrosity and lack of empathy that exists in humans even in the court of law. The supporting characters in the form of Lal playing the self-obsessed and narcissistic king, Asif Ali as the chief minister loyal to his king and his orders, Siddiqui as the judge, and the shocking turn of events the film takes with his character in the second half, and finally Shanvi as Divyani. There is a conviction brought to each role, making this film to be one of the most unique experiences for me in a theater in a long time. This is definitely not everyone's cup of tea, because many of its concepts almost become tough to decipher, but its attempt at highlighting on subjects such as consent, the sorry state of processes governed by a segregation between those who order and those who obey, and finally a take on the shameful state of our patriarchal systems is something that deserves praise. Getting to the second Malayalam venture that I saw and instantly became my favorite from this weekend was Malayankunju starring Fahad Fasil, written by Mahesh Narayanan and directed by Sajimon. I actually expected this film to be merely a survival story like 127 Hours or Buried, but to my surprise and awe, it was way more than that. Focusing on the life of Anil Kumar, an electrician who lives with his mother and is annoyed of the sound of the wailing of a newborn child who has moved next door to them. When there are warnings of an upcoming landslide that may tarnish everything, Anil rubbishes the severity of the natural catastrophe only to be subject to Mother Nature's wrath. His family dynamic, motivations, mental state, and the physical act of escaping and surviving from the calamity forms the basic storyline of this film. The amount of effort that the creators have gone through in order to recreate the disaster from which Anil has to escape is something that technicians and people who have a creative eye for detail and filmmaking would appreciate so much. Artificially creating a set with boulders and rocks and natural elements flowing through it, the set pieces never come across as if they have been shot or designed on a set. It actually physically seems like Fahad Fasil is stuck under massive debris, being absolutely overwhelmed by the claustrophobia, and the several times his progression seems to have setbacks, you slowly and steadily feel the same sense of breathlessness and uneasiness in the film. This is further heightened by the haunting background score composed by A.R. Rahman. Working in a Malayalam film after 30 years and the adept sound design by Vishnu Govind and Sri Shankar, not only does Fahad completely immerse himself physically, but you understand why he is so standoffish and reserved when it comes to other people around him. And this is where I feel the real hero of this film is Mahesh Narayanan. There is such an adept quality to the screenplay designed by him that you actually marvel at the fact that no wonder people stepped out of the theatre and came to the conclusion that this is much more than a survival story. Mahesh unfolds several reasons for Anil's psychological state in such an unassuming fashion, you start to understand why he projects so much animosity and anger towards his surroundings. Shedding light on prejudice, the ramifications of loss, and the regressive notion of the caste system, this film uncovers so many facets in such an organic fashion, you really do absolutely dive deep into the film. Convenience aside of how things transpire, in the conclusion, the film beautifully uses several dream or imaginary sequences that acts as a reminder to the protagonist of what happened versus what needs to be done. This beautiful sequence with Jafar Iduki and Fahad underwater will take your breath away, making even a rather silent environment in a packed theatre cheer and whistle. What one absolutely detests, once eliminated, transforms into becoming his only sign for a new lease in life. And that's the beauty of this film. The storytelling is so well woven that you actually think about cinema and its future, and that escapism and the love for that big screen experience is beautiful in its own way. But there's something special about films like this that make you think about it even after several days, of how beautifully creators conjured up a simple concept yet highlighted so many complex topics, as the title of the movie suggests, that has a duality in its own way. I haven't been this creatively stimulated and challenged in a long time, and I'm all for such kind of weekends. And that was a video, guys. Write down in the comments below on your thoughts about both the movies. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram, the handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.